Hello and welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you for joining me again today. Today's topic is going to be it's about intuition, and I just kind of want to open the conversation. I want to chat with you a little bit about what is intuition and places and spaces we can find it in our lives every day. Like that is the topic that when I was kind of sitting down or just even opening up, asking the universe, what wants to come through today? And the topic about intuition, but more not necessarily teaching you about your intuition, but all of the everyday uses, what kind of has been happening in the last day or even past couple days. The universe has been showing me, and they've been like, this is where you use your intuition. This is where you use your intuition. This is how you feel it. This is how you know. This is where it's coming through. All of the places and spaces in our lives that I want to share with you, how we use our intuition. Now, I have a whole course on this, so if you want to dive deeper, but I'm going to bring it to today's podcast as well. But there's a whole course if you want to learn more. So I know there's a lot of people who talk about intuition in there. It's very readily available, this information. But the way I think about intuition, so if this resonates with you, the way I think about it and the way I move with it, the way I be with it in myself, because it hits home for me. So I was actually reading a book, and of course I don't have the book. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what it's called. If I find it, I will put it in the notes. I might have borrowed it out to someone, so I might not have it. But this particular person was talking about how they viewed or looked at their intuition or their intuitive senses. And it was different than everyone else. And it highly resonated with me. And I just was reading through the book, and I'm just like, this is already how I look at my intuition. And I'm just like, yes, I'm glad someone else sees it this way. And I'm glad someone else is speaking about it this way. And it really hit home. And the reason it hit home is because I believe that talking about the highly sensitive people and the super empathic people, we probably, for the most part, I mean, not every single one of you listening to this today will be this particular category of people, but we are probably the spiritual empaths. So our spirituality is open so much that we get intuitive hits through our spiritual, well, everyone gets them through their spiritual senses, but where I'm going with this is when you have like spiritual intuition, you get it from everywhere. You are completely immersed in it. Our auras are way bigger than anyone else's. So I'm going to go down through, so many of us are the spiritual, which is way up here. And it's kind of coming through just this knowingness, but we kind of get it in all ways, in all of the ways. When I say up here, sorry for your audio folks, I'm reaching above my head and I'm pointing up above me. And it's just coming from the ethers, right? It's coming from the heavens. It's coming from the universe. It's just coming from above. And it's just coming down into us intuitively. Now, there's also the way they break it down in the book. I don't exactly remember terms or anything, but there's 4 categories, okay? And this is how I thought about it before. And I'm just really glad that someone else resonated with the same way. So mentally, right? I speak about this all the time, but intuitively, do you just have this knowing? Or do you have kind of like the voices in your head that speak to you, right? The voices or the pictures, right? All of that. So like mentally, is it coming through our mind senses, our imagination, our mind, right? Or are we super empathic? Is it coming through our feelings? Is it coming through something we can feel? Are we feeling other people's sadness? Are we feeling other people's grief? Are we feeling other people's shame? Are we feeling other people's excitement? Are we feeling other people's anxiety? Are we feeling other people's emotions on the total, right? Like fully. Are we feeling other people's emotions? That is also intuition that we are picking up, intuitive hits that we are getting. Or physically. So the 4 areas, and I will go into the physical here in a moment, but the 4 areas that I'm pointing out are your spiritual intuitive, your mental intuitive, your emotional intuitive, and your physical intuitive. So do you feel things in your body? Do you feel things like, does your knee start to hurt? Does your elbow, your shoulder, your back, your neck, your tummy, right? The gut instincts. Are you just feeling someone bumped their elbow and you're just like, dang, my elbow hurts, right? And are you picking up on your own stuff physically, or are you like empathically as well? This intuitively out in, right? We talked about this last time. We can be our stuff, it can be someone else's stuff, or it can be the collective, right? How are we picking up through our intuition? And so I want you to just take a moment or maybe grab a notebook and write down, kind of the ways that you feel you resonate with your intuition. So it can just be maybe like it's kind of like the personality traits that I was talking about, or the personality quizzes and charts and all of that. We all have a little bit of everything, right? But we're more natural and we're more in tune with some certain ways over others. So I want you to find what's natural for you and what is normal and what is easiest for you to kind of dig further into, okay? So is it your physical? Do you find a lot of physical intuitive hits? Do you get a lot of physical messages? Do you get a lot of physical? And it can be, those things like feeling someone touching you on the arm, feeling someone around you, kind of feeling it, the tingles in your skin, or feeling like hot and cold. It can be as subtle as that, not necessarily like huge chronic illness, not necessarily like, something that we have to live with for the rest of our lives, but it can be something so subtle as just in the moment we felt someone, from the spirit world or something, touch our arm, right? Or someone just, being around us. Or does it more resonate with you for the feelings? Are you super emotional? But is it all yours? So yes, absolutely, your intuition or your feelings are opening up to intuitively what is right, what is wrong, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, how you want to move forward in this life, your body, your emotions. When I say your body, because our emotions come up like, but they are our emotions, but they come like as tears, they come as like a choked up throat, kind of can't speak. They come as rapid heart rate, right? But those are still kind of like our emotions coming up for us in our lives. So when we start to really listen to our emotions and dig into our emotions and what are they telling us. And so our emotions can start to also show us, again, like what is right for us and what is wrong for us. Do I feel good about this or do I feel bad about this? Now, even if it's something bad, it might be good in the long run, but we might just have to move through it, right? yes, I really want to, let's say public speaking, right? I really want to get on stage, but I have such a fear of going on stage. And so we just might need to move through that fear because our emotion is actually telling us, yes, 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 I want to be on that stage. So we need to also acknowledge those places as well, right? So how's our intuition showing up in our emotions? How's our intuition showing up in our body? And moving back upwards, how is our intuition showing up in our mind? What kind of visions are we getting? What kind of imagination, or, kind of third eye, right? Your mind's eye. What's coming up for us? Is there thoughts that we keep having? Does it sound like someone is speaking to us? Is there just kind of this knowingness, like this thought, like as I mentioned, this reoccurring thought that it just keeps coming and you don't know where it's coming from? That's our intuition. Like some examples is like, if I just keep thinking, well, I better go to the bookstore. Well, I think I better go to the bookstore. I don't have anything on my list or in my mind to go to the bookstore for, but I better head out to the bookstore, right? So you just kind of put it in your day and in your time, and you head out to the bookstore. And now when you get to the bookstore, something kind of like intuitive happens, something magical happens, something shows up for us. Maybe a book falls off the shelf. We have a conversation with someone there. We meet someone new. I don't know why you're going to the bookstore, but your intuition knows. It knows why you need to go to the bookstore, So if you have those reoccurring thoughts, they mean something. Intuitively, they mean something. Or just that knowingness as well, right? Or if you hear a voice, it sometimes sounds like someone other than you. It sounds like, I know what, like, let's say telepathy. Let's say when I'm talking to my horses, well, okay, but I've also heard it, and I feel I really resonate with this as well. It usually sounds like our own voice talking to us, but it's not you. It's not you. But okay, like when I talk to my horses, it's kind of like, even if I reach out or I don't know where it's coming from, someone kind of in the ethers or in the heavens, in the spirit world starts a conversation with me. I know there's a lot of spirit, either guides or past loved ones or angels or animals or something. And I get these messages, and it sometimes, a lot of the time, sounds like my voice. It sounds like my own voice. But I don't know where it's coming from or actually that's not true. Normally, I do know where that's coming from. Normally, I have a connection. And like with a horse, with a dog, with a bird, with anything, right? An animal of some sort or a spirit guide, like they'll also make themselves known in some way. There'll be like a dime on the street or a feather or butterflies the other day, dragonflies, or like, again, a bird flying by. They'll make themselves known, and then you will get the message. So if you kind of hear this message and you know it's not your own thought, but you know where it comes from, it just came from, that spirit or that guide or whatnot, that happens. And that would be mental intuitive, right? And then the spiritual intuitives. That's where I put myself. So I explained it from physical back up to spiritual because I think that's how she did it in the book. So I was going through and I'm just like, I resonate with that. And I resonate with that. And I resonate with that. But then I got to spiritual. And I'm just like, but that, because what she started talking about was, she said, the spiritual people have it all in the way of everything is on fire for them. Like, as I mentioned, like our auras are twice as big or more. We have very, very large auras. We're picking up stuff all the time, and we're picking it up like deeply in all ways. And we really need to learn how to like tune in to those and really make sure we are understanding or have a deep awareness of where things are coming from, if there are someone else's or the collective, or we can get super overwhelmed. Our bodies can start to break down, our emotions go on high and crazy. Our minds, like that's where like anxiety comes in. If you have anxiety, if you have not just anxiety, but if you have other kinds of like mental illnesses, or I don't even want to call them that, but like ADHD or other things like that, if your mind is spinning right now, it's probably because you don't have the awareness and you haven't broke down what those messages are. You haven't done the work to heal, as I was talking about, let's say like that stage fright or anything else, right? The places that the anxiety comes in, you haven't worked through a lot of the places that it's coming up. And once you work through, there's a lot more clarity. There's a lot more clarity. Now, I started speaking about this under the mental wellness, the mind shift. But once you start to break down, and once you start to do the work, and once you start to heal, and once you start to move through your own stuff, your own emotions, the clarity is there too. Once you start to understand why you're crying every night in your pillow, once you start to understand, why you are hyperactive in your emotions, you're super like energized all the time. Once you start like there's a peaceful joy, and then there's like a hyperactive. I've been there too. And it's happiness, but it needs to come with a sense of peace as well. As I mentioned, like our bodies start to break down. We start to get those chronic illnesses. We start to find severe pain points. We start to not be able to work through our physical ailments. I mean, once we start to break them down, once we start to break through, once we start to work on and heal those places that are just messages or just kind of our bodies asking for something, they're intuitive messages that working through changes for us. So I've read many books, spiritual books, that say, I had this disease, I had this chronic pain, I had this illness, I had this mental space, I had this overriding emotions. And when our emotions are overriding, that's usually like, I mean, again, it still comes up in the body, but it's like hormonal imbalances start to come up there too. Because our hormones are like kind of like the energy centers, and our emotion centers. And so we're essentially on overdrive. Our body's on overdrive, and our emotions are on overdrive, and our minds are on overdrive. And so the spiritual, intuitive people, everyone really, but sometimes our journey is to work on one of those areas, right? And sometimes our journey is to work on all of them. But once we start to do the work and find the awareness and break through and break down and heal and let go and move through and really just open up to a different space, cleanse ourselves to a different space, heal ourselves to a different space, transform ourselves to this space of joy and peace and love and genuine happiness and confidence in ourselves, and we move through that overdrive and we take it down to like neutral, and then we're just kind of like flowing along with the universe, but with awareness, with more awareness than we probably ever have before, right? We're moving with the flow of the river rather than trying to like paddle ourselves like crazy somewhere, right? We're flowing along. There is a huge peace in just allowing the fluid movement and motion of the universe to just lead us where we need to go and just take us where we need to go and just move us through those places and those spaces and just being with what's coming up for us. Okay, but back to intuition. So the spiritual intuitive people, if you're on overdrive in one, you're probably in overdrive in everything. That's kind of for everyone, but some people just have to focus down a little bit more. And I honestly don't know. I want to sit here and tell you, like, if you have one, you have them all. But being a spiritual, being super highly sensitive, being super empathic, being a spiritual intuitive with a huge ass aura and huge ass sensitive antennae, I don't know what it feels like to feel any different. So I want you to feel into what it feels like for you. Is the physical where you're at? Or is it the first thing that you can start to understand and start to break down and really start to follow your physical intuitions? Is the emotional the place that you can really start to understand? Is it the place that you can break down and move through and work through and follow through your emotional intuitions? Or is the mental digging into and working through the subtle messages, the knowingness, the imagination, the visualizations, all of that? Is that some place that you can kind of start and move through and work through, following through with your intuitions? Or are you feeling super overwhelmed in every single aspect? This is where I started, feeling super overwhelmed in every single aspect. Although I didn't acknowledge, I would have to say the first thing I acknowledged was when I first started out, they really talk about the visualizations, your mind's eye, your intuitive, your they talk about all your chakras, but getting your intuitions through your mind's eye. And so they really talk about those messages and everything. So I kind of started there and really leaning into and really getting the messages. And that was a great place. That was a great place to start, really opening up spiritually. And actually, when I talk to people about my spiritual journey, I say I work my way from the top down. I worked my way from the top down. I opened the crown chakra first and worked my way down. So the mental intuitive pieces was the first that got open for me. The emotional came very close second, starting to really dig deep and dive into my emotional intuitions and aspects and what's coming up, what is going on for me emotionally. And it really took a while to dig into my physical. And it wasn't until my body really let me down or something was really going on in my body for me to start to be like, hey, something is askew here. Something, there's something physically I need to work on, right? There's something physically I need to work on. And that's when I got started. So I really worked my way down. But when they talk about the chakras as well, they teach them from the bottom up. And actually, I want to get into this. Let's see how much time I have here. I'm going to get into this. Because when we are born, we are developed from the root chakra. Like, that's our safety, right? Our safety and our security. Like in the root chakra. So we first start to develop our sense of safety and security, the root chakra and all of that stuff. So we start to develop the root chakra. And then as we grow, we start to develop our emotional, like our sacral chakra. And then as we grow up, we really start to step into our personal power, our solar plexus. And as we grow, we start to step into our heart chakra, our heart space. And then we really start to find our voice, our throat chakra, right? And then we start to really sink into our third eye and really dive into that spiritual space. And then we can go on to open the crown chakra and then, come back down. So I've heard this is not true for everyone, but just kind of on a general basis, a lot of people move through that chakra system in their growth process through, their infancy, their childhood, their adolescence, their, the teenage years, the early adulthood. And where I was going with this is a lot of people step into their spiritual journey right around like in the 20s somewhere. And that's where we really start to find ourselves, right? Away from our families, away from, even our friends or our communities, and really start to step out into the world. And then we kind of just, I wouldn't say flounder around, but we check things out, right? We go out there and we just kind of check things out. And this is not necessarily true for everyone. But then we start to find our way. Who am I? Who am I? We don't say who am I spiritually, but that's what's happening, right? Who am I? Who am I for real, right? Like on a spiritual, what does my soul want? Right? What does this person inside of me, my soul, who am I as a soul person? What do I want? What do I need? And we don't necessarily start to work our way back down, but we start to really dig into our spiritual lessons, right? However those show up for us. And then, so we do start to unlock some of those, and it can happen differently. The spiritual journey happens differently for everyone. Some people start in their youth. Some people start in their retirement years, some people start midlife crisis. Some people but a lot of people really start to ask that question somewhere in their 20s, right? Who am I and what do I want out of this life? And then they just start to learn and start to strive for it and start to work for it. And we start to work through that maturity stage for ourselves all the way to retirement, right? We really start to develop ourselves as ourselves and have our full life spiritual journey into, our golden years. So my spiritual journey, I worked my way back down. I honestly, over the last, I thought it would take less time. It has taken me quite a while, but there's so much I had to do as an empath and as highly sensitive with all of my intuitive centers. I needed to center everything. I needed to ground everything. I needed to open up and heal everything. I needed to open up, as I've mentioned, my own stuff. That only took so many years. I continue to do the work. I can continue to do the work, but the bulk of it only took so many years. And then I had to take another so many years to work through other people's stuff, including the collective, right? What's going on in the collective, what's going on, the collective family, the collective community, the collective country, the collective world, right? And that has taken me, I can't really put like a super time frame on it, because I never actually there's places and spaces where I'm still continuing to work on myself. And there's places and spaces that I'm still continuing to work through. But I feel like through the collective and through other people's and healing and letting go and stuff, but I feel like I have a bit more of a handle on it. So there was a space where I got to where I'm just like, yeah, I understand it. This is kind of like a daily process. I have like my rituals around it. I have my space around it. I have my awareness around it. Yes, you're always learning. Yes, you're always growing into it. Yes, you're always, getting better and better. But it probably took, 6-7 years for my own personal work to dive deep, deep, deep before I came out of the waters. And then it took like another little bit of overlap there, another 6-7 years, of diving deep, deep, deep into what was others, what was collective, what was family, what was ancestral, what was all of that stuff coming up for me, and start to really clear it out. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, that now I can talk about the empathy and the sensitivity and start to teach about it, because I'm starting to finally surface from my deep dive of healing my way through what I've picked up from others, what others have projected onto me, the spaces in the collective and the relationships and the family patterns and all of that stuff. And all of that stuff. But now I feel like I mentioned, I have my rituals for myself. I have my rituals to help me move through, become and stay aware of what's mine, what's someone else's, and what is the collective, showing me, telling me, helping me move through. And that has been, was just trying to think about a 12-year journey. Like I said, there's a little overlap. So when I said 6 to 7 years, there's a little overlap in the middle there. But yeah, about a 12-year journey to help me understand all of that. So if you are a spiritual intuitive, welcome to the journey. Welcome to this deep dive journey. But if you are any of these intuitive, there's one last thing that I wanted to get into before. I have to pay attention to the time, because my computer only records for so long before it yells at me. If you are any of these types of intuitives, there is a full journey for you to go on in these spaces, okay? The last thing that I wanted to mention or to talk about, to get into, is how we can help ourselves or use this intuition on a day-to-day basis. Honestly, I use my intuition from the time I open my eyes in the morning to the time I close my eyes at night. And I say close my eyes, but that's not even true, because when I close my eyes at night, I always do a clearing. I lay down in my bed and I clear my day, and I relax my body, and I move my day, and I clear it out of my body, out of my emotions, out of my mind, and, just release it. So even after I close my eyes at night, I'm still not done with my intuition, because I'm moving my day out. Or even in the morning, sometimes even before I open my eyes, I'm stepping into how I'm feeling for the day and what's going on for the day and what's coming up already. Because actually I've noticed that my day doesn't always start when I wake up. Stuff is going on around me, in my space, in my community and whatnot, that when I wake up in the morning, I say, how am I feeling? Is this mine or is this someone else's? Because I was just sleeping. Where did this feeling come from if it's not completely neutral, right? And it could be mine. It could have come from a bad dream I just had. It could have come from something that I didn't quite get cleared out from the day before, or a past experience I've had. So it could be mine. But is this mine or is this something else I've been picking up in my space? And then as I go through my day, like there's what I'm going to eat in the morning. How do I feel? Where am I at for the day? Do I need to take a rest day? Do I need to take a down day? What am I going to wear? I honestly have not consciously thought about what I'm going to wear for years and years and years. I started to understand in my body yeses and nos quite a while ago. And so my body just tells me like, yes or no. And I just kind of like go through my closet and be like, this one, like seriously, the other day I'm just kind of like, I want to wear whatever. And my body's like, nope. And I'm like, I seriously couldn't even put on that, I forget what it was, but that piece of clothing, whatever it was, a shirt or sweater or something. It's just like, no, don't wear that today. Wear this other one. I'm just like, okay, well, I like all of the clothing in my because that's another thing I do. I like all of the clothing in my closet. So there's no reason I can't wear this today. It has good feelings, good vibes. I like it. Let's go. Let's do this, right? There's no like making sure this matches and that matches and whatever. I just put it on and go. But that's the other thing I do is I make sure like my closet feels good, right? I make sure my spaces feel good. I've already talked to you guys about like the cleansing and the decluttering and all of that stuff. So I make sure the books I have on my shelf make me feel good. So if I'm intuitively picking a book to read, it's going to serve me a good purpose. I make sure, like the radio stations that I have turned on, the TV stations that I have turned on, I make sure the dishes in my closet, in my kitchen are feel good dishes. So intuitively, when I grab a dish in the morning, the foods in my cupboard are feel good foods, right? They're feel good foods. And I pause for a moment because I don't criticize anything. I try very hard not to because I know I'm only hurting myself. So, do I have a pantry full of smoothies and I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to, I do it because it makes me feel good. So, do I want to eat the cookie? Yes, because it makes me feel good. If cookies no longer made me feel good, I would not eat them, right? Making the cake or the pastries. I don't stop myself from eating anything. If it makes me feel good, I eat it. Okay? Now, there's always the work to do. And I know food is a big one. And it is in my family. And it is and has been for me. Where, like emotional eating and the rest of it. It has nothing to do with the food. Now, I shouldn't say that. Let me put a disclaimer in here. Because certain foods do make us feel certain ways. In the way of like if we drink alcohol, we are going to get the feelings that we get from drinking alcohol. If we drink caffeine, we are going to get the feelings we feel, or like our body's going to do certain things from putting that substance like putting the caffeine in our bodies, right? Makes sense? So we have to gauge where we're at with each food. If putting alcohol in my body does not make my body, my emotions, and my mind feel good, I don't put alcohol in my body. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Like, is this making sense? So we have to understand how these foods are making us feel, how we feel eating them, eating out of the bowls, drinking out of the cups, what kind of water or supplements, or not even just supplements, but I'm talking all like spices and vitamins and minerals and even medicine, right? Teas, coffees. How does it make us feel? Anything that you would find in your pantry, anything that you would find in your cupboards, anything you would find in your fridge, how does it make you feel? In your body, so intuitively, in your body, physical, and in your emotions, emotional, in your mind, mental, what's coming up for you, right? Okay. And then I go on. And it's just like, how is this job making me feel? How is this relationship making me feel? How is this conversation making me feel? And I move intuitively through my day. You know, and then I intuitively, like when I'm driving, I will intuitively, like, there's always the logistics. Like if I need to go to Walmart, I need to figure out how to get to Walmart. I'm a very logistical, rational person at the same time. But there's many streets that take you to Walmart, right? Or not even just Walmart, but like the grocery store, the clothing store, the babysitter's house, your friend's house, right? The gym, the doctor. There's many streets, there's many paths that can take you there, right? So intuitively, as I'm driving, do I take this street? Do I take this street? I don't always take the same path, right? Same way home. There's more than one road that leads to my house. Or do I even, like, is now the time to go home, or is there another stop I need to make? Or even before I leave the house in the morning, I'm talking about the days that I head out, you know, to do something, right? Is today a day to leave the house? Honestly, there have been more home days lately than away days, and it feels good in my body to just stay home. We have everything we need here, and everything always works out because I trust, right? But only if it feels good. When things don't feel good, I need to start to do the work, right? Why does my knee not feel good? Why does my back not feel good? What didn't I hear? What didn't I acknowledge? What awareness, what message did I miss, right? Why am I sitting here crying? You know, why am I waking up in the middle of the night? Why am I getting super over anxious about something? What fear is coming up? What insecurity is coming up? What emotions coming up? What thoughts are accompanying that's going on in my life? So when I feel out of alignment, when I'm not following my intuition, I shouldn't say not following it because I am still following it. But when something starts to come up, then intuitively, I just have to start doing the work of moving through it, moving past it, figuring out, finding the messages, getting the messages of what's coming up, what's going on. There you go. Start to let go, you start to release, you start to heal, you start to transform, and then you continue on intuitively living your day, right? Intuitively going through your life, right? Now, like I said, I do a lot of rational things. I make lists. I, have to do the reasonable like math when I need to do math, right? I need to do like the grammar when I need to do grammar. So there's a lot of logistical things I still need to do, but I can do them in an intuitive way. Okay? I don't need to do them out of fear. I don't need to do them out of like anger or upset or stressed out or anxiety. I can continue to do them. I can have logical, knowledgeable skills and continue to live my day intuitively while using my skills. I had to learn how to cut with a pair of scissors. And you know what I mean? Like, I had to learn all of these skills. And I still do them. And I use these skills. But I live in an intuitive way. I live in as much alignment as awareness that I have in this moment. I think I want to end it there. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to repeat that. I don't even remember what I just said. I live as intuitive, as much alignment that I have in this moment. Okay? Okay. I hope that all makes sense. If you have any questions, obviously, you can find me over on Facebook. You can find me in my email. You can find me on my website, soul2soulhealing.ca, Soul to Soul Healing on Facebook, roxanne.valier@gmail.com is my email. Yeah, go check it out. Again, any questions, any comments, leave a review if you liked this YouTube or this podcast. If something resonated with you, that's super awesome. Share it around. Let your friends, let your family know. It's all good. It's all good. I'm super happy for you guys to be able to do that. Okay, I am off. I actually have a day in town today. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys soon.